Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm super excited for the guest that I have on today. He and I have gotten a chance to connect over the last month or so, and he has a lot of value to bring. So I want to dive right into our conversation. But my good friend, Stu Roberts, has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryan. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. For my listeners who may not know who you are, I like to go full backstory of my guests. So I want to hear all about you, kind of your upbringing, kind of where you came from, and the transition that led you from where you were to where you are today. And then obviously this is a dad podcast, so I want to know about your family as well. So let's just dive right in.
All right. I'll do the 1 minute spiel. So grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Ohio originally, middle-class kid, was raised in a wealthy neighborhood. And to be honest with you, I grew up with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I didn't have what many of the other kids I went to school with had. And so I went to Wall Street looking for that. Graduated high school, college, a degree in economics, and I went to Wall Street, got a job working for a top investment bank on a sales and trading desk, working 15-hour days, and realized after a couple of years that this wasn't for me. It's not what I wanted to do. So I left for China and ended up starting a trading company in Shanghai after studying Mandarin and living in Shanghai for a couple of years, connected with some folks, and the timing was great. We built a trading company working with essentially companies from the developed world that wanted to manufacture in China. Built a business over had an incredible run over about 8 years, sold that in 2008 for a small exit, came back to the States and started getting involved in angel investing and ended up running Tech Coast Angels Orange County chapter. Did that for a number of years. And then I met my dream wife, married her, and had a couple kids, and life kind of went sideways. So I found myself in about 2015 where I had been privileged to have had some success on the financial end, but I found my life was imploding. My wife wanted a divorce. I was disconnected from my kids, and I was overweight, out of shape, and life was out of control. So I picked up the pieces, figured some things out, did a lot of in-depth research and masterminds and studying and reading. And I came out of this period, and to be honest, Bryan, part of me wanted to put this behind me and kind of close the door on that chapter. It was ugly. And then I realized, there were a lot of men that I knew who were going through this and maybe could benefit from some of the learning curve that I experienced without losing their marriage or their families. And so I wrote a book. I've got a course online, the book, and right now we're putting together a boot camp that's going to be based out of San Diego. So it's been a humble journey. This comes from a humble place, and I'm hoping today I can help enlighten and share some of the challenges and things that I figured out along the way.
Awesome. And what about your family? How many kids you have?
So 2 kids, 2 girls, both in the 4th grade, and they're not twins, but close enough that it's worked out that way. And we're very blessed. Live here near the beach in northern San Diego in a little town called Del Mar. And life is pretty good now, but it's something that I need to keep in check and regulate on a weekly basis, and that's what the book is about. The book is about how to help men structure life in a balanced way where we make time for the family. I mean, you know this. You've got 2 grown boys. I mean, you've been through all of this, and I think what's interesting. I spent Thanksgiving with my parents. We did a cruise in the Caribbean. And my dad is 85 and my mom is 86. My dad was in advertising in Ohio in the 70s and 80s. And he won some awards, but that's not what he's going to be remembered for. And it was interesting to me in a profound way at 85, he's been retired now for 20 some years. And those are distant memories. And he did some great stuff, some great work, but that's not his legacy. His legacy is his family. His legacy of the 3 children that he raised. His legacy is the longevity of his marriage and their relationship.
Mhm.
And these are things that can be taken for granted. So I appreciate so much what you're doing, because this is, in many respects, this is a legacy for you, what you've left, what you're going to leave behind, and you're sharing with the world.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm in alignment with what you're saying. I completely agree with it, because I think there's so many men out there, and it's kind of what your book kind of talks about. There's so many men out there that get lost in this world of having to be financially independent, and trying to strive for the best that they can be as far as their financial condition or their financial health, but they forget about what's at home and what's at stake for them there. And they spend these 80-hour work weeks trying to make a living, and they're missing all the things that are going on at home. And I'm sure that, for you, being this young man that was working on Wall Street, putting in these 15, 20-hour days, you kind of got a sense of that, hey, I'm missing out on other things that are out there. And that's probably why you transitioned from going from Wall Street all the way to China. You know what I mean? So I'm a firm believer in that. Your legacy starts within your home, not outside your home. And if you have that understanding, then you can be as successful as you want outside your home, because your family is strong and you're financially successful at home.
Absolutely, that is so true. And I think what you talked about, you mentioned Wall Street. When I recall that experience, I had a privileged position on Morgan Stanley's international equity trading desk. It was a great opportunity. But what I saw, Bryan, I saw men who were 10, 15, 20 years ahead of me, and they were all divorced. They were making good money, but I didn't see that a lot of them were happy.
Right.
And they pretty much lived to work. And I realized I didn't want that. I didn't want that, but still have to be honest. A part of me felt that I was going to reach this place in life if I had achieved successfully in my career, and I found that right woman, and I plucked her out of from wherever, and put a ring on her finger and married her and had 2 beautiful children. Well, I got all that, and still, life is not perfect.
Right.
Life is not perfect, and I've been handed a number of reality checks that it's humbling.
Yeah.
It's raising kids, and I'd love to talk more with you, because you've got that 10-year perspective that I don't have, from 10 to 20. All the lessons learned, if you will, and it's painful. We just got back from vacation, and we did a family ski trip. The girls are showing some aptitude for the sport. So we invested in it. We doubled down, and we, spent all this money on season passes and the flights and everything. We got there, and my oldest daughter decided she was not going to ski.
Huh.
And so, as a father, how do you handle things like this? The person in me, the child in me says, I wish I had these opportunities when I was a kid. Right. And so we set these opportunities up for our family, for our children, and they're not always appreciated in the moment. It's tough. It's tough.
And how did you handle it?
Well, I realized that I ended up spending a lot of time with my other daughter. I wanted to teach them how to ski, and so I got one of the two worked out really well. We spent a lot of time on the slopes, a lot more importantly, just time together. And I'm going to stress that it doesn't have to involve expensive ski trips. I mean, it's going out and hitting balls, or shooting hoops, or just time with them is what they want. What my daughter said to me earlier today? She said, "Daddy, today's game day. Let's play some games." And so I said, "Okay, all right. After this call, let's do that. It's the weekend. Let's play some family. Let's get the family together and play some games." I love it.
That's cool.
It'd be really simple.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, you have to find out what your kids are really passionate and interested in. And, and for your daughter, she thought she was, but when you guys got on the trip, she realized, maybe this isn't for me. And that's okay. Those things happen, but you got to find out what she is passionate in. You spent a lot of time with your other daughter that day, but you got to find out what the one that ultimately ended up not being interested in skiing. You got to find out what she's interested in and really spend that time with her. But for my boys, they gravitated towards sports. And so I spent a lot of time at the baseball field, at the basketball court, and that's how we connected. That's how we spent our times. And for me, it was a lot of, I coached and stuff like that. I still coach to this day, but I coached for them their whole lives, just because I wanted I figured I'm going to be there anyways, watching their practices and watching their games. I might as well be involved to have that extra connection with them. And so that's why I did it for so long. And, it's rewarding. And right now, my boys are two of my best friends. And I think it's because
That's
of the
awesome.
bond that we shared together through the years. Trust me, Stu, there was so many days, so many times that I messed up as a dad. There were so many times that I was so frustrated and upset as a dad, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that I'm still aware of the bonds and memories that I'm sharing and experiencing with my boys, and will always until they're, until I'm long and gone, So that's
So
cool.
let's talk about that a little bit. I love that you're bringing this up because there are still so many frustrations that come up. So let me share with you how I deal with that now versus how Stewart Roberts dealt with it pre 2015. I used to get upset, and then I don't remember apologizing a lot. And now I go to great pains to apologize to my children if I get upset and say something I regret, or just even raise my voice. I'll come to my daughters and sit down with them and tell them this is what I was thinking. This is how my mind works. But Daddy overreacted, and that's not okay. And right. I don't want to be like that. And I'm coming to you asking for your forgiveness and apologizing. And what I found is that has two benefits. One is your kids see that you're capable of making mistakes and you can correct course, but also you're less likely to repeat that in the future.
Right.
So that's been transformative, and it works in marriage too.
Absolutely.
Apologizing to my wife and don't wait 2 days, deal with it right. The sooner the better, and get on with living.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm glad that you brought that up. We can talk about that because there's a couple things that I like to tell parents. I like to tell dads in particular, because dads have this chip on their shoulder, right? They have this ego about them. Men have egos, right? And what I try to teach dads is, listen, when you apologize to your kids, not only are you saying sorry and being sincere about it, but you have to get down to their level. So you got a 6-year-old or 7-year-old or 8-year-old. You can't stand over there and apologize. You got to kneel down on one knee or both knees and get to their eye level and apologize to them. Let them know face to face that you're sorry. The other thing that I like that you said, and it's something that's so important, is admitting that you messed up. Not just saying you're sorry, but admitting that you made a mistake, that you messed up. That shows ownership. That takes the frustration out of the daughter, or takes the feeling of guilt away from the child and puts it on the parent. Now you're taking ownership of that problem and admitting that you made the mistake, and then apologizing for it, letting them know that you're going to do everything in your power not to let that happen again. That's so powerful. Now, I also like to I told my kids a lot, listen, Daddy messed up. This is what I did wrong. I shouldn't have acted this way. I shouldn't have handled it this way. So I want you to know that I'm sorry for doing that. And I'm going to do everything in my power not to let this happen again. Now, Daddy's a human. I'm going to make mistakes. I may make mistakes again in the future, but I want you to know that I'm going to do everything in my power not to let it happen again. And if I do, I will let you know again that I am sorry, but I will do everything in my power not to let it happen again. So it's important to build that relationship, and that builds a trust too with your child. So regardless of their age, whether they're 8 or 28,
Well said, Bryan. I'm curious with your background. I mean, you were a Marine. I guess once a Marine, always a Marine. But you seem to have adapted this empathetic, sensitive side too, which I find really interesting, because I've dealt with quite a few people that were down here in San Diego. There's a big, a lot of Navy SEALs and whatnot, and that's it's tough to go out and live that mission or have that experience and then come home and be the sensitive father type too. And you seem like you've been able to do that. And I'm curious about how you do that and how you made that transition, or if you will.
Well, I will say Trust me, I'm a high school varsity basketball coach. So I've been a coach for over 20 years. So there's a fiery competitive side of me.
Right.
And there's also a protective side of me. If you get involved, if you step on my family's toes, I'm gonna let you know it. So there's another side of me that no one wants to see, right? But the sensitive side of me, I think, comes from partly how I was raised. My mom's a very sensitive person. She raised me. My parents are still around. They're still married and all that. But my mom was really involved in my upbringing, and she's very sensitive. My parents were very, even though I didn't have the best relationship with them because they weren't super involved in my life because they were working parents. They were constantly at the office or constantly at work. So they weren't really involved with me a whole lot. But what I will give my parents credit for is they're super affectionate and super, I constantly heard that I was loved. I constantly was hugged. I constantly was kissed. So those kinds of things were important to me. And I think that transitioned over to me as an adult with my boys. The other thing is, I have a wife who keeps me in check too. So
Don't we all?
so
Don't we all?
if I start to kind of, with my boys when they were growing up, not so much now, but when they were growing up, if I start to get a little upset or maybe overplay what had just happened, my wife will kind of reel me back in and say, hey, I think you were a little hard on them. And then that helps me because otherwise I would have been, like you in the past, I would have been like,
Sure.
hey, forget it. It's done and over with. But so I think that's kind of all those things played into one to help me get to where I am today. And, my boys are 23 and 20, and trust me, Stu, we still, there's still times when we butt heads a little bit. But they're my best friends. And I think it's because of how involved I was in their lives and how much I communicated with them and how much I told them that they were special and they could be anything they wanted to be. And, all those things applied. I was constantly feeding them affirmations as kids. I mean, those types of things all applied. So, yeah. How about you now? Because I want to know, we got a little bit more time left, but I want to know from you, how are you facing, how old are your daughters right now?
I've got an 8 and a 10-year-old.
Okay. So you're starting to get close to those teenage years. What kind of challenges does Stu face right now with his daughters? Because I know you're a busy guy. You wrote an awesome book and you got a lot on your plate. So how are you balancing the time with your daughters?
Well, one of the things I do that I didn't do in the past that now is just part of this is we're early into January. And so I've done a lot of reflecting on last year and where I succeeded and where I failed and how I'm going to change that next year for this year. I calendar everything. I calendar my time with my daughters. And I think if you look at most businessmen's calendars, it's all about work.
Right.
And then they fit time in for their wife or their daughters or their sons, or whatever, for themselves, aside from that. And I think that was a huge mistake for me. If I schedule it, if it's on my calendar, it gets done. And I approach time with my girls and even with my wife with the same level of responsibility as I do at work. And that has been just that one little change has been so instrumental. If I have my wife and I have date nights and it's on the calendar, I will ask her out. I ask my daughters out on daddy-daughter dates. And that goes on the calendar. If for whatever reason that gets changed, you better believe it has to be, there's a conversation and you change that time, but you don't just not do it or not show up. And so, if you think about what the memorable experiences I had growing up in the Midwest with my parents and my dad, he taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to throw a baseball. He coached our soccer team. And I remember the trips, and these are all the things that are so important. So that goes. Right now we're working on swimming. We're working on skiing over the break. It's just time together. Game day, what we talked about today. Now that wasn't on the calendar today, but we leave some free time
Right.
on the weekends. But calendar it, get it on the calendar, and be accountable to it. Be accountable to the dates with your wife. Be accountable to the time with your kids, just as though it was an important business meeting, because it's arguably it's more important.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you bring it up, because it's one of the things that I preach constantly on my show. People ask me how, because listen, I work a corporate job. So I have a full-time job. I have two boys. One plays college basketball. The other one has a really strong, good corporate career, but he lives here at home. He works remote. I coach high school varsity basketball. So I'm gone every night of the week with practices and games. Then I have the podcast. Everybody asks me, how do you find time for your family? Because you're doing all these things. And I tell them it's actually pretty easy, because I schedule it. I put it on my calendar. My wife and I, when we're sitting kind of unwinding at the end of the night on Sunday night, watching TV, just kind of relaxing, we talk about what's coming up this week. And we discuss what each other has that's important, and we put it on our calendar. We do it every Sunday night. It takes us 10 minutes, and we sit there. And the reason we do that is so that way we're not forgetting like I'm not forgetting something that's important to her. So I can, like she has a test tomorrow. She's taking a test tomorrow. So I have it on my calendar. So I remind her, hey, good luck on your test, that kind of thing. So nice. Different things like that. So we have that kind of stuff on our calendar. Now, I say that, but at the same time, there's always these little roadblocks that get thrown in the mix, right? You always have something that comes up urgent, like yesterday. I was supposed to meet with you yesterday, but because of my son's urgency in his dental, that he had to go to the dentist, we had to get that taken care of. We had to postpone, right? So those kind of things happen, but as long as you kind of work your way around them, like we did, as long as you work your way around them, you're okay. I think that happens with families all the time. The other thing that my wife and I do that I think is super helpful is we talk about things with a marriage coach. We have a marriage coach that we see once a month.
I love it. I love it.
She's a licensed therapist, but we meet with her once a month. And I say, people ask me, why do you do that? Well, we don't have problems, but we do it so we don't have problems.
Yeah, I love it.
And I'm just like you. My wife and I go on date nights. So husbands, if you're watching this, even the wives, if you're watching this, go on a date night. It doesn't have to be all the time, but like last night, my wife's really uncomfortable with the whole pandemic kind of getting crazy again. She's a type 1 diabetic. She's super crazy. She's super worried about it again. And we were supposed to go out to dinner last night. And she said, I'm really kind of worried about going out to dinner. Can we order in? And I said, great. So we had a date night here at home. We went and ordered nice food from a nice restaurant and brought it home and sat and enjoyed it together.
I love it. You're going to the trouble. You're making the effort. Right. And this is something, I deal with this a lot too, the men that I coach. And it's, well, how do you get this all in? How do you fit it in? Well, and every day you can't deliver. So the book covers 5 core areas: self-health, something I call inner peace, which is essentially mental health, family, and then work, trade. And the acronym is SHIFT. And so I'm assessing myself on a weekly basis. To what extent am I delivering across these 5 buckets? Now, am I a great husband 7 days a week? Hell no. It doesn't work out that way, right? But you don't wait till the end of the month or the end of the quarter, the end of the year, or the end of your marriage, and then look back and say, well, gee, I didn't do all this for all these months and years, and I'm expecting this outcome. It's the same with as a parent. It's the same raising kids. It's the same at work. Right? If you're not investing, if you're not feeding that part of your life, how can you expect to deliver on it? You can't.
Right. You're absolutely right. And the other thing that you're showing, like I talk about this as well, with the way that my wife and I interact with each other, our relationship that we have with each other shows my boys how men should treat women and how women should treat men. Period.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing for you. Really important for you as a dad with 2 daughters. How you treat your wife. You're showing your daughters how they should be treated when they grow up. So it's super powerful. I love all the components of your book because it talks not only from a business side, but also from a family side, teaching us how to find those core balances with every aspect of our life. I absolutely love it. I love that book.
How many years have you married, Bryan?
25 years.
I mean, that in and of itself, what a great thing.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I think a lot of men of our generation have struggled with is that we were raised in the 20th century, where our fathers essentially all they had to do was show up for work.
Right.
And if they were great fathers, that was a plus, but it wasn't necessarily expected, right? Well, now the model is so different because so many of our wives work. My wife is a successful CFO. She works a high-powered job, and I'm not coming home to her baking cookies on a Tuesday night. So a lot's changed in our world, and we need to be able to adapt. We need to be that sensitive role model as a father. We also need to be the strong provider and protector. And how you balance that, and how you morph from what we learned as kids growing up with our greatest role model. I don't know about you, but it was my father. To today, and transition there's a real art there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in many respects, our wives or the women are ahead of us on this track, and we're playing
Right.
catch up because
Right.
there's so much we need to do to be the fathers of the 21st century.
Right. And it's one of the reasons why I started this show. I was tired of dads being referred to as just the babysitter. They would stay home with the kids while mom had to go, either get her nails done or run to the store or run errands. Dad was home babysitting the kids. I hated that stigma that was put on dads. And I do see dads really stepping up more to kind of be more present with their kids. But what dads don't understand is that there's still a lot of dads out there that they think, well, I'm around my son, I'm good, as they're like this on their phone, right?
Yeah.
So that I'm trying to break that whole pattern. And there's other dad podcasts out there and stuff, but I'm really trying. That's why I'm interviewing guys like you, to kind of show that, hey, I can be successful in my career and the things that I'm doing outside of my home and still be this phenomenal, successful father, because it is possible. And some dads are lost. You share it in the book. Dads find this way of kind of easing their troubles or their stress through addictions and all these different things that they're, whether it's alcohol or drugs or pornography or gambling, all those different
food.
things. Or
How about food?
Food for sure. So all those different things they kind of lean on to kind of ease that stress that they're going through. And you don't need those things. I used to be an alcoholic. I'm 12 years sober now. So I used to be an alcoholic. I didn't want my kids growing up in that life. And that's why I literally snapped my fingers and said, I'm done, because I didn't want my kids growing up in that. So dads, you need to find a way to get out of your struggles, get out of your stress, and just check in with your family. Trust me, it will change your life.
So I've got a solution for that. Something that's really helped. A few years ago, I started a men's group, and I got 3 or 4 men together, invited them to my home. We had dinner and served some drinks, and just got to know each other. And then I shared my agenda, and that was, these were men who I admired for largely their external accomplishments. One had a winery in Sonoma. Another one was a successful tech executive. He was on his third venture. But all of these men had challenges that they were dealing with, and most of which was on the home front. And it was a beautiful thing to get this room full. Every month we would get together. It was the second Tuesday of the month. And we get together and we take turns and we'd alternate, and different people would host. And we built this phenomenal group of about 12 men. And who were accomplished or were successful. Some were successful, really successful fathers. Others were really successful with their health and their diet. Others were really successful at work. And we all learned from each other. And what I found is it elevated our game, but it was also a reality check that we as men don't have to show up and be perfect.
Right.
There's no expectation that we're going to be, killing it on all 5 fronts. But yet, let's raise our game and let's help each other to do that. And just great things have come out of that. So I encourage you, man, if listening to this, find a group, or get together, or build that group yourself. Invite a couple of men who you admire. Tell them you want to do this. Get together on a regular basis and learn from one another. And not only share your accomplishments and your wins, but also your failures. It will change you. It will change how you operate, how you function, how you feel. It brings it's healthy to bring some humility to the table, but it's been transformative for me because you also see that these other men who you admire have things that they really struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. I actually do this. Okay. But I do it a different way. I'm a firm believer in, listen, you have successful companies out there, for the most part, are run by board of directors. I have a personal board of directors that report to me. And these are men that I've known, respected, looked up to, value what they bring to the table. These are guys that are not related to me, because if you have family, I feel that if you have family on your board of director, they'll just tell you what you want to hear, not
Sure.
what you need to hear. So
Sure.
these are men that I trust will tell me exactly what I need to hear. I wrote out contracts for each of them. They had to sign those contracts that they would be committed to this. And we meet every other month, and we meet via Zoom. And these are guys, they're all over I have 2 guys that are up in Canada, and the rest are all around the United States. I have a financial guy on there. I have a faith guy on there. I have 3 business owners on there. I have 1 guy that's completely like involved in like social media and marketing and stuff on there, because I want them to help me in all areas of my life. And like I said, we meet once every other month. And I do this for me. They're there to help me. But in turn, we're actually all helping each other. And this is the 2nd year I've done it. And they've all committed to being back again this year because they really enjoyed it. So it's my personal board of directors. I call them my man up tribe.
I love it. How do you structure the meetings?
I base it on what has occurred over the last month and a half. Because like I said, I meet every other month with them. So based on what I did or didn't do in the last month, that's the basis of our conversation for the next board meeting. Mm-hmm. And then I also talk about in that next board meeting, what I'd like to see myself doing going forward for the next month before our next meeting. And so it's kind of this caterpillar kind of snowball effect that it's been great.
And so it's wonderful from an accountability standpoint. How did you pay for this, or how did you get these men to do this?
Nope. I've actually only met one of them in person. The rest I don't even know. I've met them through social media, whether Instagram or Facebook, and we've all become really good friends over the last 2 years. So I've known them for 2 years or so. And all I did was I just approached them. Look, I value who you are as a person. I value who you are as a family man. I value who you are as a business person. I would like to ask you to be on my personal board of directors. You're not going to be paid for this, but here's your responsibilities. Are you willing to do this? And they all said yes. I said, okay, I'm going to send you a contract that you're going to sign and I'm going to sign. You'll get a copy of the contract. I'll get a copy of the contract. And they all agreed to it. So I don't pay a single dime for it.
That's great. Find something that you want to do, or how do you want to elevate your game, and find someone who's already done it. And wow, you can traverse that learning curve so much more quickly and efficiently. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's do this. We're running out of time. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to share with my listeners where they can find you, look up more information about you, all that kind of stuff. What's the best place for them to do that?
Oh, sure. Go to my website, stewartroberts.com, STEWARTROBERTS. The book is I'm giving away the digital version for $1. There's an audio version. You can get it on Audible. You can buy the hard copy on Amazon as well. There's a course for men. So most of the men who read my book say, okay, this is great, Stu, but now what? So that's where the course comes in. It's how can you execute and just what we're talking about, elevate your game as a dad, as a husband, for yourself, for your health, across all these 5 core areas that I define as a true success. Success goes way beyond the monetary. It goes way beyond the societal expectations of us, but how we're seen in the home, which is what you're doing. Right. So get the book. We can do the course. I do coaching as well. And like I said, there's a boot camp to follow. I partnered here with a a former Navy SEAL, and we're going to have some fun here coming up in the summer with the camp we're starting.
Awesome.
So thank you, Bryan, for this opportunity. Real pleasure.
Well, I want to thank you, brother. I really appreciate the value, the wisdom that you bring, the things that you're doing in your life, that type of husband, father, just all around good dude. And I'm looking forward to our continued friendship. Because I think you and I really had a connection here going. I enjoyed the conversation. And I'm really looking forward to staying in touch with you because I want to know how things are going. I mean, I may be getting involved in that boot camp myself. So it's super
It's a humble journey.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's been a great conversation. I'm going to be staying in touch with you, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
Listen, everybody, thank you for joining me and Stewart Roberts on another episode of Dad Up. Thank you guys very much for being here. Make sure you guys subscribe to my show. Make sure you guys are checking out his book, his website. Get involved in what he's doing because it'll only help you elevate yourself to the next level. Thank you guys again for being here. Stay tuned for the next episode. This is Dad Up. Thanks for listening to another episode of Dad Up. Make sure you guys subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel. And do me a favor, leave me a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you to see what you think of the show. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes coming up each and every week. Thank you for listening. This is Dad Up.